I have so much on my mind that I've been wanting to get in front of my camera and talk about. I feel like I mention this all the time, but it's very rare that I am alone at the cabin, and same with Jessie. We are both at home together pretty much 24/7, and it makes it a little bit difficult for me to talk to the camera and to vlog and just, I don't know, do kind of stuff like that without feeling a little bit self-conscious or not really embarrassed. But when I'm with Jessie, I just prefer to, I don't know, not be focused on filming and recording and vlogging and speaking to other people when he's around. Like, it's just, I don't know, it just feels a little bit weird, and I'm always self-conscious that there's somebody else listening. So I've really been trying to figure out sort of like a way that I can come on camera in privacy and talk to you guys without him just like right there. And the last video that that I uploaded is kind of a good example of that. I started out that video, this was the video of Jessie and I sitting in front of the bonfire with Fern and Ivy in our arms in our Adirondack chairs in front of the cabin, where we talked about our situation at the cabin and figuring out where we were going to live and where we were going to move and stuff like that. That video was originally going to be this one, actually. I was planning on sitting down by myself and just talking to the camera one-on-one, because when Jessie's not there, I'm a lot more talkative and conversational with whoever's watching on the other side of the camera, instead of engaging in a conversation with Jessie beside me and trying to be mindful of like what he's saying and how I'm, you know, responding to him and all that stuff. So I thought that there was no other perfect situation or environment than being in my car and talking to my camera as I was driving, because I do it anyway, and it's literally just me. And I don't even have the dogs with me today because I am taking my car in to get my tires changed from winters to summers. So it's a little bit late, but okay, shit. The GoPro battery is going to periodically be shutting itself off, or the GoPro is going to be periodically shutting itself off because the battery is going to overheat, because we are sitting up on this suction mount tripod in the sun in my car. So I might get my thoughts cut off and have to turn the AC on to cool the camera down. But anyways, I'll see how much I can get in until the next time it cuts me off. I was just talking about how it's a little bit late to get my winters changed to my summers, a little bit late in the season, but this was the first appointment that they had available. They're super backlogged at the Hyundai dealership in Castlegar, and I've been waiting for this appointment for a while. So I have like studded tires on my Tucson, and they sound really, really sticky on dry roads, and it's just obviously not very smart to have winter tires on in the summer. So today's the day that I'm getting my winters switched over to my summers, and I'm really, really excited about that. They're also going to check out this kind of concerning grumbly noise that's been coming from my engine, like grumbles and rattles and a little bit of low power when I'm trying to drive up hills and stuff. I am getting prepared to go on a trip to Edmonton, which is about a 12-hour drive away from where we are in the Kootenays, and I'm a little nervous to drive long distance when my car doesn't really seem to be doing that well. I drive a 2014 Tucson, so it's by no means a new car. I don't have a warranty on it or anything like that. I have BCAA, which is just like a roadside assistance program that will help me with any kind of roadside assistance or towing or whatever, but the car doesn't have a warranty anymore. I used to have an extended one, but it actually expired sometime last year. So it's a little bit concerning. I wish I was driving something a little bit newer, but this car is actually going to be paid off next year. So if it lasts that long, it has pretty low kilometers, you know, relatively for how old it is. So I'm just going to, yeah, see what it is, and hopefully it's nothing too concerning and it's just an easy quick fix, or it's nothing to be concerned about and it's just kind of like a grumbly old age thing. But I don't want my car to break down on the road on the way to Edmonton when I'm traveling with Fern and Ivy, and I definitely don't want it to break down if I'm driving around with more than just Fern and Ivy when I'm doing some pug and pet sitting this trip or a little bit later in the summer, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. The main thing that I wanted to talk about today on this drive to Castlegar actually was the cabin. So I recently announced in a Morning Grumble newsletter on Substack when I sent it out on Monday. I've also been casually talking about it on Instagram, and Instagram is something else I want to get into in this video if I have the time or if my GoPro stops shutting off. I wanted to talk about the cabin. So I announced in the newsletter and on Instagram that we are moving out of the cabin, and I've actually known that this was coming for a while, and I've been thinking a lot about how I want to approach it online with Grumble Farm's, you know, followers and subscribers and whatever, and just how public I want to be about it, because it is an extremely emotionally filled process that I'm going through right now when it comes to everything that has happened. And I think the best way for me to go about it is to talk to a camera about it and to use my voice to talk about how I'm feeling, but it's just going to be extremely difficult with I was just saying how it's going to be extremely difficult with my camera shutting off every 60 seconds. I'm feeling like I'm on, like it's giving Instagram stories where I feel like I have to cram what I want to say into 60 seconds before it cuts me off. This process of deciding to move out of the cabin has been going on for a few weeks, and the video that, if you did watch the last video that I uploaded with Jesse in front of the fire, you will have kind of gotten part one of what that has been like within the context of a conversation between Jesse and I, where I wasn't really as you know, honest and upfront about how I am really feeling as an individual person when it comes to this stuff. We had been casually kind of looking at apartments and different little homes and structures to live in around the Kootenays after I had reluctantly agreed to Jesse asking if he could post a quick announcement or, you know, shout out in a bunch of Facebook groups looking for low-income accommodation for 2 people on disability, which we are now, for a very, very low amount. And it was very much an ask and you shall receive kind of situation, or like the rule of ask, where you just don't know what's available or the options that are out there until you actually put it out there for people to possibly find. So in the current housing crisis and in the rental market, especially out here in the Kootenays, I feel like I talk about this all the time, it is fucking unheard of to find self-contained accommodation for 2 people and 2 dogs for under $1,000 with utilities included, and that was our ask. And we found 2 people that had places that they were willing to offer to us. So we did go see one, and that didn't go very well. I had a panic attack. And then if you guys watched the previous video, we had talked about this little cottage guest house on a farm that somebody had reached out to Jesse on Facebook, and her message had gotten pushed into his like request folder, which he missed. And when we replied, we thought that we might have missed the opportunity to go and look at it, because she had said that she had might have found someone else. Basically, she told us she didn't know if it was going to be available or not, and she would get back to us on Monday. And that Monday was when we sat down to film that video, so we didn't know, we hadn't heard from her yet, and we thought that it was probably likely that it wasn't available anymore because she never sent us a message. But after we filmed that video, I think the next morning, Jesse heard back from her, and she said that it was available and it was ours if we wanted it, but not until June 18th. So the date had just been pushed forward a little bit because she had received a couple of Airbnb bookings. So if you watched that video and you were listening to Jesse and I talk about that place, then that's where we are going to be moving. And I've known that for a little while, and I didn't announce it or talk about it in this week's Morning Rumble newsletter because I just felt like it was too much information at once, and I just wanted to talk about the fact that we had decided to move out of the cabin, because that process has been hell for me. Like, it has been so incredibly hard for me. My attachments to that place are so strong, and I don't like that. I knew that as soon as we saw the cabin that I was basically screwing myself by allowing myself to have this opportunity, because it was setting the bar too high. Like, I knew from the beginning that it was a this is too good to be true kind of situation, and I was right. The part that sucks about it is that we aren't being kicked out. We're actually moving out on our own, by our own decision. Our landlords want us to stay, and that breaks my heart. I wish things were different, but I literally have no control over everything that's happening to Jesse. If you, for some reason, aren't caught up to date or speed on all of that, Jesse, my partner, was diagnosed with a non-cancerous brain tumor, and we just reached a point where living at the cabin was not sustainable anymore for us as a partnership, for him and I. I would stay if I could, but I really need Jesse to be in on it 50%. I can't manage it on my own. I can't afford it on my own. And now that Jesse is on disability welfare as he waits for his surgery and then goes through his recovery and all of his follow-up appointments and all that stuff, I'm basically on my own. It's basic. I might as well just be living on my own. in terms of all the things. So I am so fucking pissed off at this GoPro right now, because even though it's sitting in my windshield with the sun, you know, blazing on it, I get it. My iPhone doesn't do that. So I have my iPhone attached to another like suction cup arm that kind of comes down. I use it for GPS and for Google Maps all the time when I'm, you know, driving around, getting to places and stuff like that. So I just twisted it around vertically, and I'm gonna try and, you know, look at the actual lens. I'm just gonna film the rest this way because I don't know what else to do. I can't keep having my train of thought cut off like that. So the place we're moving into is actually all utilities included, and it's electric heat, so we don't have to worry about firewood or keeping the place warm. It's just a really simple thermostat that we get to, you know, stay warm, which is a city luxury that I don't think a lot of people think about when they're romanticizing rural living. So we actually get to have that luxury for a little while and not have to pay for it. And the place comes with cable. Not that I watch cable television, but it comes with cable, and it comes with internet. I'm not sure what the bandwidth is or how fast the speeds are going to be. I might have to go elsewhere to upload YouTube videos and stuff like that, but for general internet usage, it should be fine. It's what they offered their guests when they were renting the guest house out as an Airbnb. So we have access to internet. Our internet is about $150 a month and has been for the last 4 years. So it'll be nice to get a break from that monthly expense. It'll be nice to get a break from the monthly expense of utilities. And it's a lot closer proximity to town. Never before living at the cabin have I ever appreciated living close to amenities more than I do now. So this is the first time that we're actually going to be close to amenities in 4 years. So we only have to drive 5 minutes to the grocery store, and there's a health food store there, which is really important for me for all of the things that I can't find at a conventional grocery store. So that's there. Fern and Ivy's vet is just down the road, and yeah, they have everything there. And it's nice because the farm is removed enough so that we're not directly in town. Like, it's still a rural farm setting, which I like, but it's, yeah, just down the hill from everything else. So it's kind of like the perfect mix that way. The things that I don't necessarily really like about the idea of moving into this place on the farm is that it's a multi-family farm. So the property is owned by the two like owners, they're partners, and they have a dog named Sophie, who's really, really sweet and friendly, and I can't wait to get to know her a little bit. I hope that I get to just like, I hope she's, I don't know, just gets to run around and I get to see her every once in a while. And then their daughter, their son and daughter-in-law and their kid, so their granddaughter, live in the smaller home on the property. And then we are going to be moving into the little guest house, and all of the dwellings are very close together, like they're right next to each other. And then there's a gigantic barn, and there are 2 horses. I forget their names. I did ask though. There's a whole bunch of chickens, which belong to the granddaughter actually. They lay eggs and stuff like that. And then they actually raise pigs on this farm. So they are butchering the 2 pigs that they have on there now, who I got to meet. I forget their names too, but they were very, very cute. And once they are processed, they are bringing more baby pigs onto the farm. And animal husbandry and you know, butchering and meat processing is something that I've actually been interested in for a long time, and I know that might sound fucked up to some people. I find that on Grumble Farm's page, a lot of our followers are in the rescue space, and they there's a lot of pegans. There's a lot of people that have vegan lifestyles and vegan ideologies, and sometimes I find it a little bit hard to ride that line between being interested in animals and dogs and pets, but then also being really interested in rural farm life when it comes to rural farm animals and how that works. This lifestyle that I've come into and that I'm learning about is something that I really want to share openly about. Like, I want to share about the experience, and I'm really interested in learning about these pigs and what that means to raise a pig and then butcher it for meat. So they don't raise these pigs, this family don't raise these pigs for commercial purposes. They're literally just raising them for pork for their family. And I think anything that is about food security is amazing, to return to that system of procuring food and stuff for your family without relying on the industrial grocery chain and stuff like that is pretty fucking smart, and it's something that I would love to do as well. Anyway, that was sort of a tangent, or like an aside from what I was talking about in regards to the cottage. I actually just pulled up to Castlegar Hyundai here. I'm just gonna park and then I think I'm just gonna continue talking here because my appointment isn't until 2:30 and it's 2:18 right now. There's the cutest little white venue next to me also. Jesse drives a black venue and I've been driving it quite a bit lately because he can't drive because he can't see. He's lost his eyesight. And so I have to drive him everywhere, and his car is a little bit more gas efficient than driving my Tucson. And I really like it. I really like it. It's really small, but it's just so fun to drive. And I love white vehicles. That's my preference for like a vehicle color. And I'm sitting beside, or I pulled in next to a white venue and I want it. The other thing I just really wanted to, I guess, talk about was this emotional process of detaching from the cabin. I think I was just talking about this before, but my train of thought got cut off when my GoPro died and overheated. I'm very, very, very attached to the cabin because it's a dream for me. And it was a very personal experience when we moved there because the setting looked exactly like Grumble Farm's logo. And I made sense of it by it being a manifestation of Grumble Farm's logo. And I do believe in manifestation and the law of attraction. I know there's a lot of criticism about it these days, but I honestly do believe in it. I really do believe in the universe's synchronicities, and I do believe in manifestation because I have seen it play out in my life many, many times. But there are times, this one for example, where something manifests and then it falls apart or it fades away, and I'm still trying to make sense of why this happened with Jesse and why the circumstances came to losing the cabin. I have faith and trust in that it was only supposed to last this long. When we moved in February, we didn't know how long it was going to be ours, like how long the reality of living there was going to be. So I always knew it was temporary. We originally signed on with a very short lease, a short-term lease until May. And at first we thought that might have been something that happens very commonly out here, is where people who can afford to have second homes or vacation homes that aren't from here will often rent their vacation homes over the winter on short-term leases, and then they'll kick out the tenants so that they can rent it as an Airbnb and make rental income, higher rental income from Airbnb. So long-term rentals are very, very problematic to find out here. And there has been some legislation that has come into play in the last little while for people that are doing that, because it's just not very fair. It's not very sustainable in this housing market, this housing crisis. But I think it only applies to cities. I'm not too sure. And we are definitely not in a city. But anyways, it's irrelevant. As it turns out, that wasn't the case. And they really did just want to put us on a short-term lease to make sure that we were happy there. And when it came time to discussing renewing our lease or moving forward onto month to month, this was like maybe a month and a half ago, we were talking to our landlords and they told us that they really, 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 really liked us and they wanted us to stay long term. And that was a huge relief for us because we didn't want to have to move at the time. This was before Jesse's diagnosis. So it must have been a little bit, longer that we talked to our landlords, but we wanted to stay. Like, we did want to stay based on what's out there right now and just how everything is. We wanted to make it work and we really, really wanted to stay, me especially. Me actually much more than Jesse, but it didn't work out that way. And so this process of finding somewhere else to live and moving out has been a process of acceptance for me, but I start to wonder if it really is more just feeling defeated and kind of giving up and releasing control, because it is out of my control. The circumstances are out of my control, than it is acceptance. So I am still every day working on that acceptance piece, but I still have this like kind of fight in me for not like trying to stay, because again, what's done is done and it's out of my control now. But every single day is just gut-wrenching for me as I pack up and I leave that place every morning that the sun comes up over the mountains and sparkles over the lake, and I walk out onto the deck and I see our view. And I mostly get these feelings in the mornings because mornings are my favorite time of the day. But every morning when I take the girls out for a pee in their pee poo garden on the side of the cabin, and I listen to the birds and I just see the land in front of me, and I can't see another property. Like, there's just so much privacy. There's so much fucking privacy. And I value that so much. I know I was just talking previously about the isolation and like access to, actually, I don't know if I talked about isolation particularly, but I did talk about being rural to the point where we don't have easy access to amenities, and that's sort of a different thing. But I actually really love being isolated. I love being away from people, and I love having like my own private space where I can't see anybody else and I can just be myself and not have to worry about people seeing me live in my private home space. It's a little bit different when I'm coming on camera to share it on the internet, but I just mean like in those, I don't know, moments where I just want privacy. I value my privacy in that way. It's a weird dichotomy because I live a very public life online, online and share so much of my life online, but just with in-person interactions, it's a different sphere. This is like my in real life sphere, not my online sphere. I value my privacy and my space. Maybe it's more so like space than it is privacy. So going from that to a multifamily farm where we're going to be literally dwelling with each other within, like, you know, it's just so close together. There's always going to be people, there's going to be noise, and there's a kid there, and it's just so different. It's just so different. They're going to have to get used to me being in my weird like house coat and like my weird outfits, and it's fine because it's the Coonies and it's a farm and it's not that uncommon, but like, I don't know. So that sort of leads us to what's coming up for me and of course for Jesse. There is another big piece of news regarding Jesse's surgery, which is that his surgery was originally supposed to be on May 22nd of this month, but he got a phone call postponing it until June fucking 28th. So it's been a 5-week delay. There's no reason. Was just a scheduling thing. He had like a front desk schedule or appointment person from the surgeon's office call and just let him know that they were moving things around and that his appointment was going to be booked for June 28th, and that was that. So there was no other reason than that. But that fucking sucked because we were planning our life and planning this move and planning just everything that's going on around this surgery date. And now that it's on the 28th, we don't really trust that date anyway because they can just call and change it whenever they want. And so maybe it's going to be the 28th, maybe it's not. He's on a cancellation list, so who knows? Like one phone call could change everything. But for now, it's the 28th, and so what that means is that Jesse's actually going to be with me for the move-out process at the cabin, which is a good thing because originally he was actually going to be leaving for surgery about a week before I was going to move out of the cabin for the last time, and so he wasn't going to be there for that process, and now he is. But I am leaving for a pug sitting job in Edmonton, which I talked about earlier, if I can use this footage from the GoPro anyway, on May 27th. And so we're going to be both moving out of the cabin around the same time. I am going to be leaving the cabin for the last time in my car with Fern and Ivy on a 12-hour trip to Edmonton on a pet sitting job that lasts until June 5th. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. Jesse is actually going to be moving out either the same day, maybe the day after. We have to do a walkthrough with our property manager, of course, and just make sure that everything is good to go and lock up and all that. But he is going to be temporarily moving in with his parents to stay for a little while. So I mentioned this before, but we're not able to move into the guest home on the farm until June 18th. So there's a little bit of a weird period of time there where I am essentially homeless. My job in Edmonton goes until May 5th, which I just said. Sorry, June 5th. And then from June 5th to June 18th, I'm kind of like, I have nowhere to go. And so my mom has offered up her place to stay. If you've watched some vlogs that I have posted in the past, staying at her place, it is a very, very, very fucking small apartment with like 5 flights of stairs and no elevator. That's really difficult to manage with the pugs. And her pug Julius, who's blind, and Ivy, who has mobility issues, and Fern, who doesn't really have a lot of gas to go up and down the stairs, that many stairs at their age. So it's hard. It's really, really hard. But she only has one small couch, like very, like skinnier than a twin, like a half a twin couch. It's like a decorative couch. It's not a very functional couch. It's comfy when you're sitting on it and whatever, but it's more decorative. It's the teal couch you guys might be familiar with. She sold her love seat, and that was actually the girls' bed because there's no fucking way they can sleep on the couch with me. I wouldn't fit. So I used to put their beds on the love seat and they would sleep there happily because they were raised up off the floor and like close-ish to me, and then I would sleep on the couch. But that love seat's not there anymore, and the girls cannot for the life of them understand that it's okay to sleep on the floor. So they just cry and cry and whine and cry and bark and paw and just get really, really anxious when they're down on the floor. So I'm not too sure how that situation is going to work out, but even without the dogs, that little couch is definitely a temporary crash on the couch type sort of situation, and to stay there for 2 weeks is kind of hard. Also, it's just living in close quarters with my mom is not really fair to her, and it's just not really good for anybody. There's just, again, the privacy issue, and my mom and I are very, 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 very close, and we get along really, really well, and hanging out with her is so fun, and it would likely be okay, like we would make it work, but it's just pushing it a little bit. I can't go stay at Jesse's parents' house because Jesse's mom is deathly allergic to dogs and she can't have the dogs there, so they can't go there. And yeah, so I'm still kind of figuring out what is gonna happen there. At least I have my mom's to stay at for sure if I can't figure something else out, but ideally I'd like to break it up a little bit so I'm not at one place for too long. And then once the 18th rolls around and we're finally able to move into the guest home, I'll be driving in from wherever I am and I guess, you know, moving in. But oh, Castlegar Hyundai is actually calling me. I'll be back. Okay, so I just found a kind of like not so private little green space in the middle of this like kind of suburban little neighborhood off of the main strip in Castlegar, which is called Columbia Ave. I dropped my car off and I didn't realize I was talking so much, and so I was 3 minutes late for my appointment after pulling in 15 minutes early. They took it for me right away and they're taking it for a test drive to check out the grumbly rattly noise, and then they're putting my summer tires on. They told me it would be about an hour, so I'm gonna try and film with my GoPro again just to see if it doesn't overheat now that I'm outside and I'm not within like the warmth and the heat of my vehicle. So we'll see, but I might switch back to my iPhone if this is giving me troubles. We are currently in the process of securing a storage unit that's close to the cabin so that we can store most of our things. The guest house on the farm is probably only, I don't know exactly, but like maybe about 350 to 400 square feet. The cabin is 1,400 square feet, so it's a pretty big downsize, and it's also fully furnished, so it comes with a queen size bed and a futon and all that stuff. I feel like we already did half of this process when we moved into the cabin, because the cabin came fully furnished as well, but it was big enough that we could bring some of our things. So for example, we brought our huge sectional that we had in the 1896 apartment and we put it out on the deck because the deck was so big, and we have loved that couch out there, but we're going to be either leaving the couch at the cabin or throwing it up on Marketplace. And I brought my own mattress, which the cabin did have 2 mattresses already because they were using it as an Airbnb as well, but we put one of the mattresses in the shop and we just used our mattress so that we didn't use theirs. And now the guest house has its own mattress that's just staying in there, so we're actually going to get rid of my mattress. And essentially we're going down to literally nothing, like literally nothing. The only things that I'm going to have are my bins, which are mostly memorabilia, mostly Grumble Farm memorabilia, to be honest. And then there's things like seasonal things, like I have like my winter coat and my Sorel winter boots and just some other kind of like winter stuff, not a lot. And I got rid of most of my kitchen stuff too. So I got rid of my food processor, which was really bulky. The kitchen at the guest house on the farm isn't really a kitchen, it's a kitchenette. So it has a sink, like a really basic sink, and a fridge, like a small fridge. So it has a hot plate and a toaster oven. The stuff that I do have, the bins and the memorabilia and the seasonal storage and whatnot, there's nowhere to put that. Like the guest house on the farm has no storage, so we had to secure a storage unit, and that has been an ongoing process for the past few weeks as well. And just today, actually, I managed to connect with somebody who owns a storage lot nearby, and they offered us like the perfect size unit for the perfect monthly rate. And so that process is going to be starting this weekend, where I'm going to be driving from the cabin to the storage, which is only 20 minutes away from where we are, a few times just to get everything into storage so that when we move out, everything that we have will fit into one last carload. And Jesse will take what he has left with him to his parents' house, and I will take what I have with me to my pug sitting job in Edmonton. And so when we actually do move into the cabin on June 18th, we'll be making maybe a few trips to the storage unit to grab some things that I didn't want to take with me to Edmonton and Jesse didn't want to take with him to his parents to bring to the actual guest home on the farm. But it's not that much stuff. I don't even know if we'll really need any of it or if we'll be able to fit any of it in the guest home. So this process is just interesting. I'm constantly trying to make meaning of it, because that's how I keep my sanity, is by giving things meaning and trying to find the lessons and the growing opportunities in transitionary like phases like this in my life. And some might argue that not everything has to be a lesson and that some things just happen and whatever, but that's just not how I choose to live my life. That would actually make me really depressed and wouldn't be wouldn't be that good for my mental health. And so I have just been staying open to possibly why this is happening and the gifts that are in it. And right now I can't really see them. The only thing that I can really see is that step one of this sort of downsizing was actually moving into the cabin, even though moving into the cabin, it was a large cabin, like a 1,400 square foot cabin, but we did let go of a lot of our stuff when we moved into the cabin because it came fully furnished. And now we're moving into basically a tiny home where we have to let go of the rest. So I'm just wondering what this experience is preparing me for, or what's going to happen next. Our lease at the guest house on the farm is a year, so it's just going to be an interesting year. And to be perfectly honest, I would like to book as many sitting gigs as I can so that I don't have to be there very often. Jesse and I have been in this type of arrangement before when we were living in the 1896 apartment, where I was away a lot traveling and just like kind of house sitting and like jumping around different homes around Alberta for months at a time. And so this is just going to be similar to that. And I just don't really want to be at this guest house. I think it's perfect for Jesse. It's not perfect for me. And it just makes me sad because the cabin was perfect for me despite all of its challenges. It's been difficult to approach how I'm going to talk about this on the internet with anyone who follows my story online through Grumble Farm, because I know that I'm not obligated to. It's just that I feel like I made the cabin such a big feature of what I was sharing online, and it was such a joy of mine. Like, it was such a highlight of my life, and it was one of the best things that has ever happened to me, even though I didn't buy it. Like, I don't own it. And I think that's part of it too, is that it's not that I was delusional and, you know, I was very aware that I was just a tenant when we were living there, but I have to remember that. Like, I was just a tenant. I didn't own the cabin and now I've lost it. Like, it's nothing like that. And I am fucking sick of being a tenant and being at the mercy of these homeowners. Anyway, I understand that homeownership is also extremely hard, and there's lots of changes and lots of obstacles and challenges right now, specifically in the market as well for homeowners, but it's just tough being a tenant with 2 little dogs and not really having housing security and not really belonging anywhere. Like, it feels like my life is just going to be uprooted at any moment, and part of me just really wants to settle down and just be where I am and build a relationship to place and, you know, have a sense of belonging. But I guess now I'm sort of leaning into more of like a nomad lifestyle in a way, and I just wasn't prepared for that. So I'm trying to rewire my brain into thinking that that's going to be my life now. And it's hard, like, having a brand or whatever, like earning an income and a living online by people that are following along with my story, because my story changes so fucking rapidly. Like, there is really no stability. It changes all the time. Like, it's constantly changing. And I feel like I always have to change my story to make it accessible or palatable or understandable to people, particularly new people that are discovering Grumble Farm's page for the first time. And sometimes that's absolutely fucking impossible to do. Like, things just change so fast, and I'm constantly adapting and trying to keep up with who I am and where I live and what I'm sharing. And like, the one thing I just keep coming back to is constantly sharing the changes and constantly sharing, like, adapting over and over and over and over again to this life, and like the things that are being thrown at me and the things that I'm constantly changing to fit into. I feel like I'm always trying to make a story of that, and that can get really exhausting sometimes and also very, very confusing. So when we moved into the cabin, you know, it was all about living in a little log cabin in the woods with the pugs. And I loved that story. I loved that narrative for myself and for my life. I loved it. It fit so well. And I feel like I could have lived happily ever after in that narrative in my head, but that's not the case. And so now it's sort of, I'm just grappling with what I have, and I'm like, how do I make this work? Like, I decided to put myself out there for pet sitting again and house sitting because I was actually trying to make enough of an income to cover the household expenses at the cabin for Jesse and I, since he isn't working and he's just receiving like a welfare disability amount per month, which is very, very, very small, not enough to cover the basic cost of living at all, not even a portion of it. And so I thought I could leave the cabin on these like trips to Alberta, which is where all of my clients are, but I was open to traveling to the Okanagan and even over to the coast if things lined up or if the gigs were long enough to be able to earn enough income to just keep the cabin. I wouldn't even be fucking living there. And it wouldn't have worked anyway because Jesse would have
have been up there completely isolated without a way to drive to get his groceries and to like be around supports and stuff like that and go to all of his follow-up appointments and whatever. So the place where we're moving is a lot better for him in terms of his current disability and the struggles that he's going through to at least have a little bit of independence and autonomy when it comes to living his life, which is really important when you're going through something like that. So it's a huge compromise for me, but I love Jesse and I want the best for him, and I'm his partner and we're in a partnership and we're just in a season in our lives where it's my turn to compromise for my partner. I went through cancer for 5 years and my partner at the time had to compromise a lot for me, and going through this with Jesse now has only made me realize what that must have been like for my ex for that long. That must have been really, really hard for him. I didn't really have the awareness of that at the time, but now that I'm on the other side of it, it's become a little bit clearer and I have a lot more compassion and empathy for it, but it doesn't make it any less difficult. Like, it's still fucking hard and it sucks. It really, really sucks. So I'm just trying to make sense of this, and I'm trying to make sense of how to move forward online with this change. And I announced it kind of for the first time through a newsletter that I sent on Substack that I wrote on Sunday, sent out on Monday, and then I talked about it on my Instagram stories. And it was crazy to me how many people were like shocked that I said in passing casually that we were moving out. I had posted a photo or a video of our bins packed in the corner, and I was talking about the robin cam and watching the robin, the mama robin, raise her babies. And I was just saying how difficult it's going to be when we move and we have to deinstall the robin cam. This might not make sense to you guys actually if you're only watching on YouTube, because I shared about this in the Morning Grumble newsletter. So sometimes it's hard to keep track of what I've shared where to keep the story like linear. But I was just talking about, I basically said that we were moving out, and it was crazy how many people were shocked at that, which meant to me that they hadn't read the newsletter, they weren't subscribed, or it landed in their inbox but they didn't open it. And it's exhausting to have to cater to or create for, communicate on different platforms where people aren't connected. Just having to like repeat myself, and it's emotionally draining to have to share things with different groups of people who are kind of stuck on or loyal or dedicated to those platforms. So people on Instagram only really ingest their news or their information by receiving it on Instagram, and then through Substack, which is long form writing, and then here on YouTube. So I've been thinking about that. I actually never stopped thinking about that. I've been thinking about that for a long time, just where I want to focus my efforts. And I've been wanting to let go of Instagram for a long fucking time, like forever, for so many reasons. And I actually won't get into it in this video because that will just be a whole separate hour-long tangent. But just this experience of like updating or announcing that we're moving out of this cabin that I put so much focus on in my content or in the stories that I was sharing, visually, especially in videos and photos, and I talked about the cabin a lot here on YouTube and stuff like that. And it's, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to do this as smoothly as possible, taking into consideration the people that have been following along with bits and pieces of my story online on various platforms. And I know that I likely think about this a lot more than literally anybody else does. It's probably not that big of a fucking deal. But when it comes to Instagram specifically, I am so oversharing the important stuff there. Like, the effort that I put into writing my newsletter and the effort that goes into saying what I want to say and communicating what I want to communicate in these videos for YouTube takes so much time and so much emotional labor that it's just not worth it to put that on myself to try and talk about stuff on Instagram as well for people that aren't interested in reading the work that I put so much time into writing and talking about a thing and making a video about a thing on YouTube. Like, all the platforms I feel are just so separated, and there are like exceptions to the rule. There's people that read, watch, enjoy everything that I share and they love it, and then there's other people who aren't as invested in my story or just don't, well, yeah, I don't know, I think that's just it. They're not as invested, they don't really care as much, and it's not that they're bad people, it's just that they're not as invested, and I'm not as high of a priority as maybe others that they follow or others in their life or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone or get too pissed off about it because that's unwarranted, but it's just from I don't know, from where I'm at and what I'm feeling, it's challenging. It's very, very challenging. And it makes me want to quit Instagram like really bad. Like, it just makes me want to walk away and never go back. And I, have spent so much energy trying to convince people to subscribe to Substack and convince people to subscribe on YouTube. And I feel like those I was able to reach who decided to do it can kind of come along as I share on YouTube and as I continue to write the Morning Grumble newsletter. And those who didn't, well, they can enjoy their Instagram land because I don't want to be there anymore. It sucks because I'm contractually obligated to stay at least for the next several months anyways. I have a contract with a brand, Pet Genie. You guys might be familiar with the reel that I created for them recently. I'm doing my second one when I'm in Edmonton actually, and then I have a third one that I signed a contract to create hopefully just sometime this summer. So after I post that one and send them the analytics and the sort of engagement metrics for that, then I can actually leave and not come back. So I think that is probably in my future. I straight up have an Instagram addiction in a content creator way, not in a personal way. I feel like my addiction runs a little bit deeper and is a little bit more complex than somebody's who's using Instagram for personal reasons and personal purposes just to keep up with their friends and family. It's a little more complicated than that because my livelihood and my business and my living is tied up in it, as well as my brand and my personal brand. I don't really have a personal brand right now, but there's just a lot more to it for me when it comes to what I'm doing online, and I think about it all the time. And I just want to quit. I just want to leave, like, so badly. Substack is an interesting ecosphere to be a part of because there are so many people, so many creatives, so many artists, so many writers, so many just independent thinkers who are so fucking sick of Instagram, and they're all there. So the discourse and the conversation, the dialogue that's happening over on Substack has been really mind-opening and very supportive and very enlightening for me. I just love it over there. So I also like to use Instagram stories to share with my pet sitting clients, because I can share to my stories and tag them really, really quickly. And it's really special for them to be able to follow along quickly with what we're up to and to get updates throughout the day for what their little babies are up to when they're gone on vacation and when I'm taking care of them. So I do use it for that. DMs are really, really, really overwhelming. And comments just add to the list of other things that I have to keep up with on other platforms. So yeah, that's the update on that. I'll probably be talking about that continuously as I try and make my way off of Instagram. I would love to focus just on YouTube and just on Substack. It will also help me with creating videos that are more linear and just like have more continuity, because I get confused when I'm spreading it out between different platforms, and different people have heard different things and everybody's all confused because I've announced something somewhere that they didn't read and it's just or watch. It's just very frustrating for me. The last thing that I just want to clarify or like just share with you guys for what to expect coming up, and I just talked about this a little bit previously, but I am going to be pet and pug sitting again, but it's going to be a little bit different this time. So this is something that I have been doing for probably the past, I would say, 7 or 8 years, part-time in some regards, full-time in other regards, depending on what's been going on in my life. But I am going to be traveling around to do pet sitting and breed-specific pug sitting. So I obviously specialize in the breed. I know a lot about them, and specifically I specialize in senior and like geriatric stage of life for pugs specifically. But it is a little bit more open. So I'm open to taking care of different breeds, and in particular, I'm actually really, really, really interested in sitting for people's rural properties and rural farms. So I actually have 2 booked. One is for my friend Jade, and then I have another one booked that was a referral through Jade for a friend of hers who owns a farm or lives on a farm in southern Alberta. So Jade's more north. This new client will be more south, and they have big herds of, not they, but like between Jade and her, there's a big herd of horses, there's a donkey, there's chickens, there's a pig, there is a baby cow named Astrid, there's some farm dogs, there's some barn cats, and just a whole like menagerie of farm animals. And I am just interested in utilizing this. The GoPro just shut off again, overheated, and cut me off, so now I forget my train of thought. But I just received a very ominous phone call from Castlegar Hyundai saying that I needed to come back immediately so we could have a conversation because some information has come to light about my car. So this might kind of throw literally everything I was talking about out of whack if my car needs thousands of dollars of fucking work. I am not entirely sure. Oh, I have like dry mouth. It feels like I just got like a call from the vet in an emergency situation, which is like the worst feeling on planet Earth. If you know, you know. Short update. I'm just sitting under the trees on some really uncomfortable like twigs. I'm at the Castlegar Hyundai dealership, so I came back and he called me into the office, like I was getting called into the principal's office. I sat down and he basically told me that my car is on the verge of an engine failure. So he asked if there was anyone who could come and pick me up. I'm about an hour and a half away from home, and Jesse can't drive right now, as I've been talking about, because he can't see. And because I have BCAA roadside assistance, he suggested that I just take my chances and drive home and park it, and then call BCAA right away and schedule them to come and pick it up. And there's my car right now, it's ready. They would come pick it up and drive it to Castlegar. Without BCAA, it costs about $800 to get a car towed from where we are up to or down to Castlegar. We had that problem last year sometime. I couldn't afford to get it towed. And then yeah, they would just keep it here indefinitely because the next available time they have to actually give it a proper inspection is on June 5th I called Jesse and then I texted my mom, and I was just trying to figure out what the universe is trying to tell me. I know when I was just sitting under the tree before I got the phone call, I was talking about how it's just a habit of mine to constantly be thinking of what the message is or what it means. And I'm like, am I not supposed to be going to Alberta? Like, is this like the timing of it? Like, but we were just about to start making trips to our storage unit, and we're on the verge of trying to get out of the cabin and undertake this move, and Jesse's surgery and the sitting jobs that I have booked all summer, and I don't have a drivable car. So I don't know. I wasn't going to film an update. I was like, shit, where I left it before was kind of a bit of a cliffhanger, but I thought I would just turn on my phone and record my thoughts as I was sitting here in the shock and disbelief of the fact that I don't have a vehicle anymore. I still owe about $4,500 on this car, but the repairs are, like, I don't even really know what the point of doing an inspection is, but if the repairs are like 15 grand, then obviously I can't do that. It wouldn't be worth it anyway if I could. But yeah, I don't know, but I'm gonna try and drive home now. Fuck.